plans out which holes the orbs will pass through from the very beginning, and then connects those points, she will have a clear route through all 5 layers, Lu Sheng explained. All she has to do then is control the 15 orbs to follow 15 different paths. Sophia's eyes lit up, seemingly grasping the idea. The staff members pondered Lu Sheng's words, nodding in agreement. The staff looked at Lu Sheng with admiration, but still pointed out that accomplishing this strategy in such a short time frame, determining 15 routes and calculating distances and speeds, was incredibly challenging. Lu Sheng shook his head. For the average person, perhaps this calculation might seem overwhelming, but for a psychic practitioner, this method should be a piece of cake. As he spoke, Lu Sheng looked over at Sophia, signaling her to pay close attention, as Lu Sheng will only demonstrate this once. Sophia blinked in surprise, and the staff members wore the same expression of bewilderment. Then, the very next moment, they all watched in horror as all of the metallic orbs inside the box on the ground began to levitate, swarming closely together like a vast colony of bees. With a swift gesture towards the glass wall, Lu Sheng commanded the countless orbs. They dispersed instantly, shooting through the holes in the wall with incredible speed. The beads quickly coalesced into a massive block. Just as they approached the glass wall, the swarm abruptly scattered, rapidly passing through the round holes in the glass wall. The number of round holes in the glass wall wasn't nearly enough for the number of beads, yet every single bead managed to pass through in a precise and orderly. By the time the last bead passed through the first glass wall, the leading ones had already passed the 3rd and even the 4th layer. All the beads moved as if they had a consciousness of their own, swiftly weaving between layers of glass wall. In just a few seconds, soon, the swarm of beads had reached the other side of the last glass wall. Lu Sheng turned to the stunned Sophia, telling her that it was indeed simple. Once the concept was understood, they just needed to pass in sequence. Sophia remained silent, unable to find words. Lu Sheng then looked at the staff and asked, "How many seconds?" The staff, almost reflexively, glanced at the timer and blurted, saying it was exactly 10 seconds. Even the front desk, who had led Lu Sheng in earlier, was left in utter silence. Lu Sheng then inquired if Sophia had understood. Sophia had clearly seen how the nearly 1,000 beads had managed to safely pass through layer upon layer of glass walls to reach the endpoint. Each bead's flight path was evident and clear. But how did Lu Sheng do it? It felt like a magician performing a trick right before her eyes. She could clearly see each of their movements, yet couldn't understand how it was done. Their minds struggled to grasp how nearly 1,000 beads managed to navigate through the intricate holes in just 10 seconds. If it was really done in the way Lu Sheng described, with nearly 1,000 metallic beads, layers of glass walls, and thousands of tiny holes, it would be an astronomical and intricate computational task. The scene they had just witnessed was profoundly shocking and overwhelming for their senses. The room fell silent until the staff snapped to her senses and urgently beckoned the young man to call the guild president over. Inside the president's office, an elderly man wearing a t-shirt and sandals was sitting in front of a computer. His eyes were fixated on the screen. Even as a level 4 psychic master, he couldn't become a gambling god, he mused. The front desk rushed to the office door without even knocking, bursting in. The elderly man didn't look up but inquired why he was so panicked. The young man raced to the president's side. The young man was at a loss for words but recounted everything he had witnessed. The president was engrossed in his game, barely paying attention to the young man's words. The young man urged him to check the surveillance footage. Reluctantly, the president paused his game and pulled up the surveillance. On screen, Lu Sheng was undergoing a psychic power test, the brilliant golden glow emanating from his hands illuminating the entire room. For the first time, the president's expression shifted. Accompanied by the soft hum of the equipment, the breaths of everyone in the room grew tense. Soon, 2 numbers appeared on the display. Psychic strength, 435.87. Psychic purity, 126.02. Everyone stared at the numbers in disbelief, thinking the machine might be malfunctioning. Only the staff understood how terrifying these numbers were. The Psychic Association's purity standard for a level 2 psychic was 1, and even for a level 4 psychic master, it was only 10. 435 psychic strength was shocking, but this purity level is purely impossible. The staff recalled the strongest psychic master here was their president, who was only a level 4 psychic master. Yet the young man before them, with the appearance of a high school student, had a psychic purity that was 12 times that of an average level 4 psychic master. Upon seeing this, the president hurriedly exited his office and rushed into the testing area. He asked the staff to double-check if the equipment was malfunctioning. She reassured the president, stating that the equipment was functioning perfectly as they had just tested 2 individuals before Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng, appearing somewhat puzzled, asked why they were reacting so strongly. Was there an issue with his scores? The president quickly explained that Lu Sheng's results were so astonishing that it was hard for them to believe. He then quietly inquired if Lu Sheng was perhaps the descendant of a level 7 or level 8 psychic master. Lu Sheng shook his head with a smile, stating he didn't come from such an esteemed background. He then inquired if he could proceed to the final test. The president, wiping sweat from his forehead, asked Lu Sheng if participating in the final test was really necessary given his astounding abilities. Lu Sheng just shook his head, remarking that for him, it was merely a simple task. As he said this, he casually glanced towards the glass wall. As soon as the staff began the timer, the iron beads in the room transformed into a dragon-like stream, piercing through the glass effortlessly. Lu Sheng felt he could even go faster. In no time, all the iron beads passed through the final layer of glass. This second attempt was even faster than the last attempt. The staff, trembling, looked at the timer. 4.25 seconds. At that moment, everyone in the room felt as if the air had been sucked out, leaving them breathless. This task was even more difficult than the one Lu Sheng had performed earlier, yet he managed to reduce the time by half. Observing Lu Sheng's effortless demeanor, it was clear that he had not reached his limit. As the president of the Psychic Masters Association, he was well aware of the difficulty of what Lu Sheng had just accomplished. Even he couldn't achieve what Lu Sheng did. The president believed Lu Sheng's ability was approaching the level of a grandmaster's psychic control. He was at a loss for words, overwhelmed by what he had just witnessed. His attitude towards Lu Sheng changed completely, addressing him with deep respect, and even referring to him as Sir. This was a respect for strength, regardless of identity or age. The president decided he would personally craft and present a certificate and badge to Lu Sheng. However, he expressed some difficulty. He could only issue a level 4 psychic master certification here. For a higher level badge, Lu Sheng would need to go to the capital city. Lu Sheng, noting the president's drastic change in demeanor, felt slightly amused. He told the president not to be so anxious. The president is much older than he was. There was no need for such formal titles. In Sophia's eyes, Lu Sheng seemed to be surrounded by an aura of greatness and mystery at that very moment. Beneath his upright and handsome appearance, there seemed to be layers of mist, giving her an indescribably mysterious and majestic feeling. Sophia stammered, asking Lu Sheng how old he was. Lu Sheng replied, he was 18, and he was preparing for the unified examinations as a high school student. He wondered if Sophia thought he was one of those who look young on the outside, but have actually lived for who knows how long. Sophia nodded seriously. That was exactly what she was thinking. Lu Sheng smiled at Sophia, telling her that she should read fewer fantasy novels. Lu Sheng is about to take the unified exam. The Psychic Master certification can help him earn extra points in the exam. That's why he came here specifically for the assessment. Sophia felt a bit dizzy. Today's experience seemed too surreal for her. She looked at Lu Sheng and asked if she had one more chance for the assessment. Should she give it another try? Lu Sheng earnestly replied, telling Sophia that she had the talent. If she is more focused, she can surely pass. He gently lifted her arm, trying to help her relax. Sophia's face turned red instantly, her heart racing. As Lu Sheng instructed her on how to proceed, she didn't hear a word. It was as if time had stopped. Sophia looked at Lu Sheng with a flushed face, her emotions a mixture of feelings. She bit her lip, her heart tumultuous with emotions. With the help of Lu Sheng, Sophia finally passed the assessment. Sophia thanked Lu Sheng once more, and with a smile, he nodded in acknowledgement. Lu Sheng's mission was accomplished, as he was about to leave. At this moment, the president walked over, congratulating them on passing the assessment. He wanted to seize this opportunity to have dinner with Lu Sheng to celebrate the birth of the second fourth-level psychic master of the Psychic Association. Lu Sheng shook his head. He thanked the president for his invitation, and just as he was about to decline, seeing the anticipatory expressions of the president and Sophia, he reluctantly agreed. Both the president and Sophia were overjoyed, with the president informing Lu Sheng that someone would come to pick him up in the evening. Sophia volunteered, mentioning she had a car and would undertake the task of driving Lu Sheng. Sophia, radiant with joy, led Lu Sheng to her fiery red sports car, waving her hand grandly to open the door. As Lu Sheng was getting in, the president also came to see him off, with Lu Sheng buckling his seatbelt and bidding the president farewell, agreeing to meet in the evening. The fiery red sports car roared away, weaving through the highway. Throughout the journey, Lu Sheng remained silent, and Sophia didn't dare to speak either, only sneaking glances at Lu Sheng through her mirror. Even now, Sophia could hardly believe that everything she experienced today was real. Primarily, it was because Lu Sheng looked too young. Dressed in casual clothing, with one hand resting on the car door, and his head turned to look at the rapidly passing scenery outside the window. Who could imagine that this was a prodigy fourth-level psychic master, a person even the president of the Dongning Province's Psychic Association holds in high regard? So young, so handsome, and with such a great physique, moreover, his talent was incredibly astonishing. Compared to Lu Sheng, those self-proclaimed elite second generations that Sophia usually meets are simply worthless, a pile of garbage. Lu Sheng suddenly turned his head and glanced at Sophia and gave her a confused look. Sophia's pretty face instantly turned red. Her heart raced, pounding wildly. What did Lu Sheng's gaze mean just now? A bold yet shy thought suddenly popped into Sophia's head. It's impossible. She has only known him for such a short time. But then again, she thought, it's not entirely impossible. Typically, boys in their adolescence do like the big sister type. Sophia was confident in her own looks, too. She had a good figure and perfectly fit the big sister type. The more she thought about it, the hotter her face became, and she suddenly pressed hard on the gas, quickly reaching their destination. A blush spread across Sophia's cheeks as she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. She was pondering on how to start a conversation with Lu Sheng. It was then that Lu Sheng spoke up. He thanked Sophia for bringing him here, but now Sophia should probably make a quick run. Sophia was taken aback. Why should she run? The next moment, she saw Lu Sheng looking at her and then pointing at the police cars behind Sophia's car with a strange expression. He mentioned that Sophia had been speeding and had also run 5 red lights. Just moments ago, there were 2 police cars after them. Now there's a dozen. Lu Sheng, seeming helpless, remarked that even if Sophia was a psychic master, she should still drive safely. After dropping off Lu Sheng at his hotel, Sophia drove hurriedly after leaving a message, addressing Lu Sheng as Mr., and said she would be picking him up later tonight. Behind her were a dozen persistent police cars. Lu Sheng waved his hand and, carrying his luggage, walked into the hotel alone. The room was very spacious, with a large bed. Lu Sheng turned on the TV, and a news story about Ling Su and a new pharmaceutical company was being broadcast. The White Lake City Benevolent Pharmacy had officially been renamed Ling Sheng Pharmaceuticals Limited and introduced a new supplement. Ling Su confidently stated that this was a supplement set to change the era, redefining the existence of supplements and leading the world of martial arts into a new phase. Lu Sheng assumed that Ling Su must have forgotten to inform him. He picked up his phone and found more than 20 missed calls from Ling Su. All right, it seems like Ling Su couldn't reach Lu Sheng at all. Lu Sheng thought about calling Ling Su to inquire about the situation, but on second thought, he put down his phone. He would be returning to White Lake City at the latest by tomorrow, so he could find Ling Su then. After entering the dream realm, he wanted to see what changes had occurred in the future. He then searched for information about Ling Su and the new pharmaceutical company in the dream realm. To his surprise, he discovered that Ling Sheng Pharmaceuticals, founded solely by Ling Su, had eventually developed into a company with a market value exceeding 10 billion, becoming a giant in the pharmaceutical industry. Suddenly, Lu Sheng then glanced at other information, while stomping on the spouse column in Ling Su's profile, and nearly jumped off the ground. Spouse, Lu Sheng, Major General of the Eastern Military District. Lu Sheng was so shocked that he plopped down onto the ground. He immediately had Ai Yi pull up his own personal information and found in his spouse column, not only was Snowy's name still there, but Ling Su's name had also inexplicably appeared alongside it. Lu Sheng sat on the ground, mumbling to himself. He suddenly felt like he didn't understand himself anymore. What exactly had happened to him in the future? 2 wives? Lu Sheng suddenly snapped back to reality and quickly closed the file. The future was illusory. Anything could happen and would change soon enough. Lu Sheng had thought, and had Ai Yi help him search for the spirit muscle vital soup, which is the new supplement that Lu Sheng provided to Ling Su. But the result was, Lu Sheng didn't have sufficient access to acquire formulas for supplements above level 5. Lu Sheng was correct. He had thought of this possibility when he introduced the spirit muscle vital soup. If he was able to introduce a future supplement and its formula today, it would then be refined and improved after 10,000 years of development to become a higher quality formula. The result was beyond his expectations. The spirit muscle vital soup was not only genuinely refined, but also metamorphosed directly from an ungraded supplement to a treasured supplement above level 5. Lu Sheng then began to brainstorm at high speed. If he could bring something from 10,000 years in the future to the present day and announce it, it would be equivalent to giving human civilization 10,000 years of developmental time to research, potentially elevating it to new heights. Knowing that the future can really be altered, when he pulled up the martial world history again, the history indeed had changed. The time of total destruction had been postponed by 10 years compared to the first time he checked. This means that a single formula of spirit muscle vital soup, after 10,000 years of evolution, managed to earn an entire 10 extra years of survival time for the whole of human civilization. Then what about stellar body-enhancing technique, natural breathing technique, and crystal medication techniques? These 3 supreme level 11 martial art techniques. Lu Sheng's mind bubbled with a daring idea. He even felt an impulse to upload and announce all these techniques online in one go. But he quickly suppressed it, discarding this thought. It is uncertain whether revealing these martial arts techniques today would be able to fully rescue the future of human civilization. Once disclosed, it would definitely cause a huge uproar around the world. The current law and order would be shattered instantly, and society would plunge into chaos. He and his family would immediately become the eye of this storm, with unknown outcomes awaiting them. Such actions wouldn't necessarily lead to a positive future, and he wouldn't be able to save humanity. Lu Sheng stayed calm, organizing his thoughts. The best approach is to wait until he has enough power to control the situation, then slowly release these techniques. If a guide for civilization were to be chosen, it would have to be Lu Sheng. Obviously, it has to be Lu Sheng since he is the protagonist. All the good things and beautiful waifu would also be his. Leaving the dream realm, Lu Sheng puts on the suit sent by the president, a set of pure black evening tuxedo. The young man in the mirror, dressed in a well-fitted black suit with a white shirt, is fastened with a deep blue tie at the collar. Lu Sheng casually picks up his phone, scanning it briefly. Recalling that he hasn't yet responded to Ling Su's message, he quickly types a few lines, telling her that he will return tomorrow, and asks her to prepare the ingredients for the 3rd formula. Ling Su replies with a confused emoji, thinking to herself, this guy finally responds, and the only thing he just asks her is to prepare the ingredients? Ling Su, being extremely busy and overwhelmed recently, holds her phone, angrily typing hundreds of words in a few seconds, saying Lu Sheng was irresponsible for leaving everything behind. She then sees a question mark replied by Lu Sheng. She wants to tell him how hard it is to manage this company alone, but fearing his authority, She deletes all her complaints and only sends a few words back. Received. Okay. Ling Su then puts her phone away and continues to immerse herself in her busy work. Lu Sheng puts away his phone and stretches a little, feeling constrained by the suit. He steps out of the room and goes down to the hotel lobby on the 3rd floor. Here, he finds Sophia already waiting for him. Sophia appears to have carefully dressed up for the evening. She has delicate makeup and wears a long red dress with a slit running from her thigh to her waist, looking very stunning. Sophia walks towards Lu Sheng and informs him that the banquet is ready. Lu Sheng tells her to just call him by his name, saying that Mr. sounds strange. Seeing Lu Sheng in his new black suit, Sophia finds him even more handsome. Sophia drives more cautiously in the evening, not running a single red light on the way. They soon arrive at the banquet venue. Lu Sheng frowns, wondering why there are so many people. Isn't it just a simple dinner? Initially, Lu Sheng had come with the intention of having dinner with the president privately, but now he plans to just briefly meet the president and leave. Sophia explains that the president is one of the top figures in the city. Many things are not as low profile as he wishes them to be. This is already a small gathering considering the president's influence. Hearing this, Lu Sheng decided to stay for a bit more anyway. He is leaving tomorrow morning. At the so-called low-profile yet luxurious banquet, elegantly dressed men and women gather in small groups, holding wine glasses and engaging in casual conversation, occasionally letting out soft, restrained laughter. It's a common scene of the upper class. The president is still discussing with the group what he saw today, but they find what the president described was too outrageous and can't be true. A woman, dressed in a deep blue evening gown with delicate makeup, whispers to Amelia, telling her, "This banquet is no ordinary one." She then looks in a certain direction and says, "The mayor is here, and so is the president of the Martial Arts Association is also here." Almost everyone present are prominent figure not only in their city, but also in the whole Dongning province. The initiator of this banquet was the president of the Psychic Association. The woman tells Amelia that in the whole Dongning province, only their city has a psychic association. Although it seems to be at the city level, it's actually no different from the provincial level. So everyone gives a lot of respect to the president. Upon hearing the woman mention psychic, Amelia's expression fluctuates as if she recalls something. Amelia suddenly remembers that Lu Sheng said he would also go to the Psychic Association for assessment. She asks her friend if she could inquire whether there is someone named Lu Sheng in the association. The woman suddenly looks at Amelia. She suddenly remembers hearing the name from another friend, and she questions Amalia. Did she fall in love with a high school student that she met while traveling recently? Amelia, like a frightened deer, abruptly raises her head and then quickly shakes her head to deny it, saying not to listen to their friend's nonsense. The woman clearly sees that Amelia is lying and points at her, questioning. She's been staying in city all this time and hasn't gone back to university. Is Amelia waiting for that boy? She heard from her friend that Lu Sheng is quite handsome and has some connections with the Eastern Military District. The woman looks at Amelia with a somewhat helpless expression, saying even if Amelia, while in university, casually dates a poor boy with no background, she wouldn't interfere with Amelia. After all, she's young, and dating a few people is normal, as they will eventually break up anyway. But how could Amelia be like a high school student? The woman, with a baffled expression, reaches out to touch Amelia's forehead. Amelia avoids her hand, strenuously retorting, "Lu Sheng, he is not an ordinary high school student." The woman is speechless, but he's still a high school student. She sighs, looking at Amelia with disappointment. Amelia was indeed dragged here by her close friend to attend this Psychic Association celebration dinner. Since separating from Lu Sheng last time, she has been staying in the city because Lu Sheng said he would come back to the city sooner or later. She sent many messages, but Lu Sheng did not reply, and even did not read them, as every message showed unread below it. Amelia does not know whether waiting like this will bring any result, but she can only wait patiently. She wondered, doesn't she have any place in Lu Sheng's heart? The woman pats Amelia's shoulder, asking her why she is daydreaming. She then whispers to her that tonight's banquet is to celebrate the emergence of a 4th-level psychic master, someone on the same level as the president. Such a person is a big shot even in Dongning province. The woman sees that Amelia is not particularly surprised and continues to talk, telling Amelia that if they were favored by such a big shot, both they and their families would benefit greatly. Amelia suddenly thought of something and asked if her friend knew the age of the new 4th-level psychic master. The woman shakes her head. She isn't sure about his age, but considering the president's age, she thinks he wouldn't be too old but also not very young. Today's banquet has attracted many women, even those in their 40s. Amelia sighs. For a moment, she even thought the 4th-level psychic master was Lu Sheng. The woman looks at Amelia and tells her to stop thinking about the high school student, urging her to cherish this opportunity. Among their circle of friends, apart from them, no one else has the status to be here. Amelia isn't listening to the woman's words. She is still thinking about Lu Sheng. Out of the corner of her eye, Amelia suddenly glimpses a figure standing in the corner eating. He is in a sharp black suit, has a slender figure, and is constantly putting food into his mouth with a fork. Amelia widens her eyes, wondering if she has seen wrong or if it is an illusion. After staring at that person for more than a minute, Lu Sheng turned back and looked at her. Lu Sheng waves his hands at her, and at the very moment when their eyes meet, Amelia finally confirms that this person is Lu Sheng. Amelia tells her friend to go ahead, saying she has seen her friend. Amelia immediately leaves and rushes towards the man that she has been thinking about for weeks. The woman can't stop Amelia, and following the direction Amelia is running towards, she seems to understand something. A teasing smile appears on her face. Lu Sheng, watching Amelia who had suddenly rushed to him, was quite surprised. Lu Sheng was enjoying his food when he unexpectedly saw Amelia, whom he hadn't seen for a while. Amelia's face is overflowing with immense joy and happiness, her cheeks flushed red. Suddenly, Sophia appears, a stunning and eye-catching woman in a red dress, coming to Lu Sheng's side, cheerfully grabbing a snack from his plate with one hand. Sophia looks very happy, while Lu Sheng appears somewhat helpless. Seeing how familiar Lu Sheng and Sophia seem with each other, Amelia stands bewildered, her face suddenly turned pale. Although Lu Sheng and Sophia haven't exchanged any words, and Lu Sheng appeared annoyed, in Amelia's eyes, Lu Sheng and Sophia seemed to be chatting and laughing, and their actions were intimate like a couple. Amelia wondered, who is this woman? Could this be Lu Sheng's girlfriend? Amelia plucked up her courage, calling out loudly to Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng waved back with a smile, saying he didn't expect to find Amelia still in the city. As Amelia looked at him, it struck her that even in just a few weeks, Lu Sheng seemed to have grown even more mysterious and inscrutable. For some reason, it seemed as if there was an unbridgeable cliff between Amelia and Lu Sheng, rendering him out of her reach. Sophia subtly sized up Amelia, asking Lu Sheng to introduce his friend. Lu Sheng said that this was Amelia, a companion he met last month while visiting Mountain. Sophia greeted Amelia politely. After a bit of casual chat among them, a teasing voice rang in their ears. Turning around, Amelia saw her friend. After introducing Lu Sheng to her, the woman with a wineglass in hand scrutinized the young man standing before her, evaluating his looks, build, and demeanor. Lu Sheng was top-notch in every aspect. She thought to herself, so this is Lu Sheng, no wonder he has Amelia all hooked on him. The woman recognized Sophia, and a slight shock appeared on her face. Seeing Sophia by Lu Sheng's side, her temper towards Lu Sheng changed instantly, her enthusiasm cooling rapidly. She couldn't deny that even in their circle of friends where handsome men and beautiful women were commonplace, Lu Sheng would beat 99.99% of them. The women then realized why Lu Sheng could be here. It wasn't due to some powerful connection or personal capability, but because he was simply a gigolo, advancing to the upper class by relying on women. Unsure of how to address him, she decided on Mr. Lu Sheng. Thinking about speaking to a high school student in such a manner made her want to laugh. Her words were laced with a tinge of sarcasm, saying she had always heard Amelia mentioning Lu Sheng. Seeing him today, he indeed stands out as extraordinary. Lu Sheng could easily perceive the subtle shifts in the women's mood and attitude, but chose not to comment, responding with a simple nod and a simple greeting. The woman sipped her wine with a polite smile on her face and inquired where was Lu Sheng from. Lu Sheng said he was from White Lake City, then cut her off, asking with indifference if she planned to inquire about his parents next, to understand his family background, and perhaps further probe how he managed to gain entry to this banquet hall. Lu Sheng, with a hint of mockery in his eyes, looked at the slightly shocked woman, stating he was just like what she thought him to be, a student from an ordinary family who happened to be invited here. Lu Sheng waved goodbye, while told her there was no need for such cliched scenes. He smiled at Amelia and excused himself, saying he'd be going first, and they would chat some other time when they were both free. After saying that, he turned around and left. Perhaps this is why Lu Sheng despised such occasions. To outsiders, it might seem like he was a bit sensitive, but so what? Is everyone perfect? After all, Lu Sheng was a child from an ordinary family, but this family was the most precious thing in the world to him. Lu Sheng will not allow anyone to insult or harm his family. Lu Sheng tossed his plate and fork onto the table, thinking he would have been happier eating at a hotel. Before Amelia and Sophia could react, Lu Sheng had already walked far away. Sophia shot a cold glance at the women, then followed Lu Sheng. Amelia subconsciously wanted to chase after them, but was held back by the woman, who told her that a man like Lu Sheng wasn't worthy of her affection. Watching Lu Sheng's retreating figure, the woman scoffed, telling Amelia that she hadn't even said anything yet, and he reacted like this. What does that tell them? It tells them that Lu Sheng cares deeply about the very things he himself just said. Proud, but without real ability, and extremely sensitive about his self-esteem. To put it nicely, he's proud. To put it bluntly, he's just a low self-esteem brat. The woman claimed that she has seen many such people. They are not suitable for Amelia. She then turned to look at Sophia. Realization dawned on the woman's face. She pointed ahead and asked Amelia teasingly if she knew who that woman was. Amelia only knew her name was Sophia. The woman nodded and explained that Sophia came from a prestigious family and was herself a psychic practitioner, seemingly approaching level 2. In the social circles of the second-generation elites of their city, Sophia was absolutely top-notch, and the family behind her wielded enormous power. Observing how familiar Lu Sheng and Sophia seemed, the women would bet that Lu Sheng, either by his appearance or some other means, managed to connect with Sophia to get the chance to attend this banquet. Placing her hands on Amelia's shoulders, she loudly declared that Lu Sheng was nothing but a freeloader and a gigolo, and told her to open her eyes and see him for what he truly was. Every word from the women hit Amelia's heart like a hammer. Standing there, Amelia muttered, bewildered, "That can't be. Lu Sheng can't be that kind of person." The woman looked at Amelia helplessly and comforted her, saying that sometimes the truth is cruel, but it's something everyone has to face. She hoped Amelia would think about it carefully. Amelia was still immersed in the shock brought about by the women's words. She refused to accept what the women had said was true. Looking at Lu Sheng's figure. Suddenly, an image of a dazzling young man, radiant as the sun, popped into her mind. Amelia came back to her senses. Lu Sheng was the hero who had saved her. She slapped herself on the cheek, thinking how silly she was to have doubted even for a moment that Lu Sheng could be a freeloader, living off of women. Amelia turned around, looked seriously at the woman, and told her word by word that Lu Sheng could absolutely not be the kind of person she described. However, the women thought Amelia was still blinded and wanted to continue her remarks about Lu Sheng. At that very moment, there was a commotion in the hall, and one person pointed out that the president had made his entrance. The president walked towards the center of the hall wearing his evening suit. Everyone turned their attention to the elderly man. The woman quickly adjusted her makeup and told Amelia to stop thinking about that pretty boy, as the president was about to introduce the 4th-level psychic master. Sophia was still introducing the place to Lu Sheng bit by bit, and the president quickly noticed the two of them. The president walked straight towards him. The crowd and the gaze of the crowd also followed the president's footsteps. Quickly, the president walked up to Lu Sheng, and the woman wondered why the president would walk toward Lu Sheng. A sense of unease flashed in her heart instantly. The president, with an apologetic face, said he was truly sorry. He really did not know that Lu Sheng did not like being in a place with so many people. Lu Sheng shook his head and said that the president had significant responsibilities, and he was happy to be of some help. The president thanked Lu Sheng for his understanding, used his 4th-level psychic master's ability, and then raised his head to introduce loudly to everyone in the banquet hall. The person standing beside him was the newly emerged prodigy 4th-level psychic master of their Dongning Province Psychic Master Association, Mr. Lu Sheng, who was only 18 years of age. The president joked that compared to Lu Sheng, he really felt ashamed. The president spared no praise in his introduction of Lu Sheng, practically exalting him to the skies. These words set off a huge uproar at the banquet. An 18-year-old 4th-level psychic master. They even doubted their ears. People of his age usually not have taken the unified examination yet. Almost all eyes in the venue converged on Lu Sheng. Various voices of amazement, shock, and disbelief were incessant. Among the crowd below, the woman, who had been so shocked that she lost her composure and stood there dumbfounded, unable to utter a word, didn't even notice when the wine glass in her hand slipped to the ground. She only heard Amelia's voice next to her, asking the woman if she saw it. A person who steps on the stars, shining brightly like the sun, is the real Lu Sheng. The woman's mind went blank, and she trembled uncontrollably. She couldn't believe that the main character of this banquet was the very Lu Sheng she had just belittled. She stood up, tapping on Amelia's shoulders, pleading with Amelia to help her fix the relationship with Lu Sheng. Amelia motioned for her to look at the crowd. Those chasing after him, stretching on tiptoes, craning their necks trying to hand over their business cards, yet Lu Sheng ignored them all. He didn't seem to care for these gestures. To others, Lu Sheng might seem a bit arrogant, but why wouldn't he? He is young, an 18-year young level 4 psychic master. Isn't it quite normal for him to have a bit of pride? But for Amelia, perhaps it was just her infatuation, Lu Sheng felt so distant from her. In the end, their relationship ended before it even began. Lu Sheng made an appearance to honor the president, easily evaded the tedious crowd, and left the banquet. Even the president didn't notice when exactly Lu Sheng had departed. Lu Sheng hailed a taxi, planning to head back to White Lake City. On the way back, he leaned against the car window, gazing at the reflection mirrored on the window. He didn't appreciate this so-called high society banquet. He was here merely as a courtesy to the president. Lu Sheng wanted to be home. He wanted to return to Water Lake City right away. As for the luggage he left at the hotel, he'd have Sophia send it back later. Nothing essential was inside anyway. The taxi sped along the dark road. Watching the fleeting night scenes, Lu Sheng relaxed. This was the life he desired, simple and pure, accompanied only by his family and martial arts. After all, Lu Sheng was still a typical high school student from an ordinary family. The reflection on the car window showed a contented smile on the young man's face. He changed back into his original clothes and returned home. A knock sounded at the door. Lu Sheng's mother opened the door, and upon seeing Lu Sheng's return, her face lit up with joy. The voice of his younger sister welcomed him home, urging him to sit down quickly. Their father also looked at Lu Sheng with delight. Lu Sheng smiled and said, "I'm back." Lu Qing put down the bun she was eating, approached her brother, and looked up at him. She questioned how did Lu Sheng grow so much taller after just one trip. She curiously measured the height difference between them with her hand. Lu Sheng playfully pushed her aside, walked to the living room, and sat down at the dining table, jokingly remarking that it was she who had become shorter. Lu Qing, feigning annoyance, hurriedly took a seat across him. Lu Sheng, still smiling, mentioned that since Lu Qing was on school holiday, he'd like to test her strength later. Remembering a previous message from Lu Sheng, she felt a bit apprehensive, unsure of her brother's current martial arts level. All she could perceive was that Lu Sheng was becoming increasingly enigmatic. The aura surrounding him was intensifying. Sometimes, just a glance from him would make her feel like a mouse spotting a cat, causing her to get goosebumps. It was even more intimidating than the 3rd level or even 4th level martial arts teachers at her school. Their mother handed Lu Sheng a bowl full of steamed buns. Lu Sheng casually took a meat bun and took a small bite. Today was a rare day when Lu Sheng's father was off from work, and with Lu Sheng's return, the mood of the entire family was elevated. Lu Sheng looked at his father, asking if he had been eating the meat in the fridge and the supplements he'd brought. His father responded affirmatively, and then inquired about the supplements. Their father poured a glass of water and sat next to Lu Sheng, telling him mixing the supplements with water daily made him feel so much healthier and younger, almost as if he'd shed 20 years. However, there was a hint of concern in his voice. Those supplements must be quite expensive, right? Lu Sheng casually remarked that these things weren't expensive. It was gifts from a friend who runs a pharmacy, specially formulated for middle-aged people. He insisted that his father shouldn't dilute them with water, and even his mother should consume them as well. He mentioned having a lot more. The friend he referred to, without directly naming, was Ling Su. So this wasn't entirely a lie. Upon hearing this, his father didn't ask any further questions. Once his mother was done with her chores, she approached and asked if Lu Sheng was preparing for the unified exam, asking if he would stop traveling around recently. Lu Sheng chuckled, stating that he'd stay home and not go anywhere. Subsequently, he requested another bowl of rice. Swiftly, he snatched a piece of meat from his sister's bowl, resulting in her protests. Lu Sheng joked, blaming her slowness for the act. The joyful dining atmosphere came to a close, and Lu Sheng turned to his parents, suggesting that since everyone was home today, they should consider looking for a new house due to the current space constraints. His implication was the need for a larger residence, ideally one with a training room for martial arts practice. The location didn't matter. After some thought, his parents agreed to accompany him. Later, they visited a mansion. This was a new house Lu Sheng had purchased through a friend. He inquired if everyone liked it. His mother, after glancing at his father, felt the house might be beyond their financial reach. But Lu Sheng reassured them, producing a bank card from his pocket. He mentioned earning a substantial amount of prize money over the past few months, with 5 million already in the account and another 5 million yet to be credited. His mother almost fainted in disbelief, while his father doubted his ears. His sister, in shock, questioned if he really had that much money. Or did her brother rob a bank? Jokingly, Lu Sheng teased that he had legitimately earned it and hadn't robbed a bank. He affirmed that this house was their new residence and they should move in soon. With tears in their eyes, with pride in their eyes, his parents realized their son had truly grown up, taking on responsibilities and looking out for the family. Lu Sheng swiftly picked up his sister, allowing her a moment to get ready, and informed her of a training room in the backyard. He wanted to test her current strength. Taken aback for a few seconds, she meekly agreed. After getting changed, they headed to the training room where she assumed an offensive stance. Without warning, she lunged into the air, aiming a flying kick at Lu Sheng. Yawning, Lu Sheng effortlessly caught it with one hand. Half an hour later, drenched in sweat, Lu Qing lay on the ground, panting heavily, signaling her surrender. However, Lu Sheng seemed not to acknowledge her submission. Looking down at her, he urged her to stand, questioning if she was truly fit to be his sister. Lu Qing's face showed traces of defiance, questioning how she could stand when he was holding her like this. She shouted, Lu Sheng was already a strong martial artist, and yet she was just at a beginner level. She hasn't even reached the level of an official martial artist, and all Lu Sheng does is bully her. Her eyes began to tear up, seemingly releasing all her frustration. Seeing his sister's teary face, Lu Sheng's expression softened. After a moment's thought, he released her foot, allowing her to stand. He wanted to impart some useful martial arts techniques he had deduced over time to Lu Qing. Upon hearing Lu Sheng's words, Lu Qing's face changed instantly, and she sprang up from the floor like a fish leaping from the water. She gazed at Lu Sheng with sparkling eyes, her face filled with anticipation. Could it be a secret martial arts technique? The person who was just crying seemed nothing like her now. Lu Sheng casually replied she could call it a secret martial arts technique. Whatever Lu Sheng did next, he wanted his sister to follow. But this technique should not be taught to others. Lu Qing stood upright, her expression more earnest than ever. If anyone was ever curious or puzzled about Lu Sheng's rapid rise, it had to be Lu Qing. Having spent over a decade together, she probably knew Lu Sheng better than anyone in this world. Over the past few months, except for the occasional times when Lu Sheng was away, she had witnessed firsthand how he transformed from an ordinary high school student to what Lu Sheng is now. It felt like watching a seed grow into a towering tree overnight. Night after night, Lu Qing would lie in bed, racking her brains, trying to decipher the mystery. Everyone claimed Lu Sheng had suddenly awakened, but she felt that there must be some secret he was harboring, the key to his meteoric rise. Now, it seemed Lu Sheng was about to reveal that very secret to her. With her innate talent in martial arts, knowing the secret would make her more powerful than ever. She could even surpass and defeat her brother. The thought of this scenario made her giggle, her face lighting up with amusement. At that moment, an icy voice resonated in her ears, followed by a karate chop on her head. Caught off guard, the tears she had held back earlier now rolled down her cheeks. She felt as if she had just gotten shorter. Lu Qing immediately shut her mouth, her little face turning serious. Subsequently, Lu Sheng kept guiding her through various techniques and movements. Lu Qing gradually realized that what Lu Sheng was teaching her seemed to be a body-refining technique. After completing the entire set, she felt numb all over her body and was so exhausted that she lay on the ground. Lu Sheng laughed and asked if she felt the effect. Reflecting on every move, Lu Qing felt that the results of the exercises were astonishingly good. Lu Sheng pondered for a moment and wondered how he could ensure that his sister wouldn't disclose this technique. He casually said, "This technique is just like the exercises she usually practices, only this is the latest version." Lu Qing looked puzzled. Lu Sheng then added, "It's like the smartphone they are using now. It seems to be the latest version, but companies have already developed newer versions ahead of time. They're just in the testing phase and haven't been officially launched yet," telling Lu Qing to not release this technique to anyone. Lu Qing was taken aback, realizing, so right now, she is basically a lab rat? Lu Sheng pinched his sister's cheek and said that there were benefits to being a lab rat, and most people wouldn't even qualify to be one. Besides, the body-refining technique he taught her was only available for a specific group of martial artists. It just wasn't ready for mass promotion. Lu Qing grumbled about the potential risks, asking what would happen if she ended up with a disability due to the training. Lu Sheng, speechless, retorted that since they were siblings, if she became disabled, it would happen to him first. Lu Qing then said, "Well, they are both doomed." Seeing Lu Sheng raise his hand as if to karate chop her, Lu Qing ducked and cried out that she was only joking. Then she curiously asked how Lu Sheng got his hands on this body-refining technique. Did he steal some secret? Lu Sheng clarified that he would never do anything illegal. However, after some playful fighting, Lu Sheng's expression turned solemn. He informed Lu Qing that the person who taught him this technique had strictly warned him against teaching it to anyone else or letting anyone find out about it, or their whole family would be in grave danger. A nervous expression appeared on Lu Qing's face as she began to imagine multiple scenarios like in movies. She was horrified that Lu Sheng had shared such a significant secret with her. Lu Sheng, with a serious expression, nodded and then looked at his sister with a complicated gaze, saying, he had no choice. After all, Lu Qing is his only sister. Lu Qing's eyes welled up with tears, and she emotionally said, "Oh, Ni-chan." Lu Sheng reminded her once again to guard this secret closely, stressing that she couldn't reveal it to anyone, including her teachers, best friends, and anyone else. Lu Qing nodded seriously, and Lu Sheng felt satisfied seeing his sister's commitment. Lu Sheng instructed his sister to practice the technique several times. Once she was familiar with it, she could practice on her own. Lu Qing's previously playful attitude disappeared in an instant, replaced by a newfound seriousness. She seemed to have matured significantly in just a short span of time. Even her behavior towards Lu Sheng became more affectionate and close. After all, her beloved big brother was risking his life to impart this martial arts secret to her. A thought crossed her mind. So all those times her brother locked himself in his room, He wasn't sneaking around with inappropriate magazines, but was actually practicing this technique. She firmly believed that with enough practice, she would definitely surpass Lu Sheng in skills one day. After their training session, Lu Sheng departed, leaving his sister to practice on her own. He told her to continue refining her technique, and when he returned, he would teach her some real combat techniques. Lu Sheng returned to the same restaurant he had been to before and took his usual seat. He met with Ling Su, who had already ordered a table full of steak for him. The two sat across from each other, one listening intently while the other spoke. Ling Su reported that the initial market price of the Spirit Muscle Vital Soup is set at $49,888, which isn't extremely high, but is still not affordable for the average consumer. She is targeting this product at the mid to high-end clientele with a certain financial capability. The sales have been pretty good. In less than a week since its launch, 1/5 of the initial 200 portions have already been sold, and the repurchase rate is exceptionally high. Ling Su believes that after some time, with people sharing and spreading the news, it will undoubtedly become the star product in the martial arts supplement industry of White Lake City, and even the entire Dongning province. Lu Sheng nodded as he listened to Ling Su's report, expressing his confidence in her. He inquired if their financial situation was still stable. Ling Su nodded. For now, they can manage. But as sales expand and they start to consider opening branches, they will likely need to take out bank loans. Moreover, she doesn't have much of her own money left. Lu Sheng took a sip of his drink and assured her he would be transferring some funds to Ling Su in a while, telling her to not worry about it. Ling Su suddenly recalled and asked if Lu Sheng's unified examination was about to start. Nodding, Lu Sheng mentioned that he would focus entirely on the upcoming exam and wouldn't travel elsewhere. He also mentioned that he'd be moving soon and would send Ling Su the new address. After some while, Ling Su's expression became complicated. Sometimes, even she would almost forget. The man sitting in front of her, exuding an overpowering aura with every gesture, was still a high school student who hadn't even completed his unified exam. Half a year ago, she probably couldn't imagine entrusting the fate of her family to such a young individual. On the silent nights when Ling Su would suddenly wake up, she would often ask herself if she had gone mad. But judging by the current situation, her decision seemed right. Ling Su sat for a while, realizing that after finishing their business talk, there wasn't much left to chat about with Lu Sheng. Thus, she stood up, preparing to leave. Before departing, she informed Lu Sheng that she had promoted Ma Fei to the position of store manager. A brief image of a young man playing with his phone at the counter flashed through Lu Sheng's mind. He told Ling Su to make decisions as she saw fit. Without any further conversation, Ling Su nodded and quickly left the restaurant. Ever since the steak incident, Ling Su felt awkward dining with Lu Sheng at the same table. Lu Sheng watched as Ling Su's figure faded into the distance. He has fully entrusted Ling Su with the pharmacy and believes that Ling Su will not betray him. Lu Sheng raised his hand and ordered 50 portions of steak to be packed. Right now, his primary focus was on enhancing martial strength, forging his psychic weapon, and achieving further breakthroughs. Additionally, he also had the female Grand Master in his sights. The next time he faced her, Lu Sheng was determined to defeat her. Lu Sheng happily returned home with a packaged steak in hand. His mother carried the steak into the kitchen while his younger sister, Lu Qing, lounged on the sofa, her eyes wide as she listened intently to their father speak. Everything at home was just perfect. A gentle smile spread across Lu Sheng's face. Time had flown by, with months passing in the blink of an eye. After winning the military star selection and passing the Psychic Master's evaluation, Lu Sheng returned home. Using his prize money and personal earnings, he had purchased a new home for his family. Upon hearing the news, the people from Red Mountain Martial Arts School had voluntarily offered to help Lu Sheng's family move. Soon, the family was ready to move out of the old neighborhood and into a large mansion on the outskirts of the city. By evening, the entire Lu family had settled into their new home. However, one of their new neighbors seemed to regard the Lu family with a somewhat curious gaze. Tomorrow is the day of Lu Sheng's unified exam. Lu Qing playfully raised her little fist and said, "Oh, Ni-chan, I'm sure you'll come back as the city's top martial arts scholar." Lu Sheng chuckled and ruffled Lu Qing's hair without saying a word. Lu Qing exclaimed with joy. She finally had her own martial arts training room. Lu Sheng's parents prepared some gifts, planning to visit their new neighbors. Lu Sheng wanted to accompany them, but his father suggested Lu Sheng rest instead, telling him to not worry about such trivial things, especially with the exam tomorrow. He patted Lu Sheng's shoulders and looked at Lu Sheng with pride. If Lu Sheng truly became the top martial arts scholar, their family would truly bring honor to their ancestors. By evening, Lu Sheng lay on his bed and entered the dream realm. His inner strength now stood at the pinnacle of a 4th-level martial artist. Although he could advance to the 5th level any time, he continuously refined his inner strength. The once faint golden energy now shimmered like golden amber throughout his body. He was close to completing his 3rd refinement, which had multiplied its power several times over. As for other abilities, he has completed the 1st stage of the indestructible golden body technique, and will likely break through again after his last refinement. Lu Sheng could now unleash 20-fold of the stellar force. He had also made progress with the nature breathing techniques, though the true potential could only be realized in actual combat. Lately, Lu Sheng trained daily with the female grandmaster in his dream realm. He could now endure a whole 5 minutes against her without being defeated. Today, as always, he sought her out. She held her gleaming silver spear and faced Lu Sheng with her usual stoic expression. In truth, compared to the unified exam, Lu Sheng's deepest desire was to defeat this female Grand Master in his dream realm. With a fiery determination in his eyes and using his flame breath technique and 20-fold stellar force, he launched a full-force attack on her. As her spear narrowly missed him, Lu Sheng landed a fierce punch on her face. However, the female Grandmaster's combat instincts were unparalleled. Even when struck, she retaliated instantly, landing a powerful kick to Lu Sheng's abdomen. Lu Sheng was sent flying, crashing into a nearby skyscraper 100 meters away. He utilized the 2nd form of the flame breathing technique. This form not only allowed Lu Sheng to conjure fireballs out of thin air, but also added explosive splatter damage to his attacks. Rising from the debris, he hurled the fireball toward the female Grandmaster. The effect was notable, but ice spikes suddenly materialized around her, blocking the fireball. In an instant, the spikes expanded toward Lu Sheng, who quickly switched to the wind-breathing technique to evade the attack. Today's training was typical. He lasted 5 minutes without being defeated, but was still no match for the female Grandmaster. However, compared to his initial instantaneous defeats, he'd come a long way. The perfect martial path had fully integrated into Lu Sheng's martial arts, but he wondered when he could take it a step further. Shaking his head, Lu Sheng felt his energy drained. For now, he still couldn't defeat the female Grandmaster. Nevertheless, after months of intense training, his overall strength had undergone a transformative evolution. After the unified exam, he would surely be able to acquire the subsequent parts of the 3-level 11 martial arts techniques. With his power one day advancing and stepping into the ranks of 5th-level martial artists, he was confident in defeating the female Grandmaster. Looking at her gleaming icy spear, the more Lu Sheng sparred with the female Grandmaster, the more he yearned for her magnificent spear techniques. He could never get the dazzling glacial river across his mind, even though he already has his own weapon. Now, Lu Sheng also possessed his own weapon. He summoned his latest creation, the sound reminiscent of blades clashing with each other. In front of Lu Sheng, hundreds of large silver blades flew out, filling the air. These blades circled rapidly around, emitting sharp whistling sounds as they sliced through the air. It was from the mithril mine Lu Sheng had discovered earlier that he had managed to extract a whopping 27 kilograms of mithril. Every bit of it was invested in this weapon. After all that effort, Lu Sheng was left almost penniless. No wonder psychic masters were so expensive. Thinking about it, Lu Sheng felt a pang of distress, saying this profession is like a money-burning pit. Despite how expensive it was, after obtaining the indomitable Wheel of Blades, Lu Sheng felt that it was worth it. Even throughout the expense of 10,000 years of martial arts history, psychic masters remained the most sought-after elite martial profession. In these few months, Lu Sheng successfully mastered one of the techniques within the indomitable Wheel of Blades. The Fireseed Resource Library's description of this technique was quite succinct, consisting of just a few words: able to slay grandmasters. If Lu Sheng could utilize this weapon to defeat grandmasters now, then what about the 6th level, the 7th level? And what of the combat techniques of the psychic master even more potent than the indomitable Wheel of Blades? Every nerve in Lu Sheng's body trembled with anticipation. He couldn't hold in his excitement. Of course, this was merely a demonstration of the power behind a single move. Grandmasters aren't just going to stand there and let him strike them down. The female grandmaster before him had an incredibly strong combat instinct, unmatched by most regular grandmasters. Lu Sheng's weapon attack still couldn't land a hit on her. However, if Lu Sheng unleashed his full-powered indomitable Wheel of Blades technique, he could deal a devastating blow to the female grandmaster. But after using such a move, even being a 5th-level psychic master, his psychic energy would be completely drained, rendering him an easy target afterward. The very next moment, he would undoubtedly be reduced to dust by a single thrust from the female grandmaster. But Lu Sheng knew for a fact that his speed was now on par with the female grandmaster. But as for his full strength, he himself wasn't even sure of the extent of his current combat capabilities. As for the unified exam tomorrow, it would be the perfect opportunity to test himself. City's top martial artist scholar, provincial top martial artist scholar, Lu Sheng muttered to himself, a glint of determination shining in his eyes. But Lu Sheng's ambitions extended far beyond just these titles. Lu Sheng's sister called out from the first floor, telling Lu Sheng to wake up and come down for breakfast. As Lu Sheng got ready and approached the living room, he could already smell the tantalizing wafts of meaty aromas. Their mother had already prepared a feast on the dining table, hoping that the hearty meal would bless Lu Sheng with good results in his upcoming unified exam. His younger sister remarked that she would accompany Lu Sheng to the exam site as well. With a smile, Lu Sheng patted his sister's head, noting that it would be good for her to get a feel of the exam atmosphere so she wouldn't be too nervous when it was her turn. She pouted but didn't say anything. They quickly finished breakfast, and as they prepared to leave, their mother reminded Lu Sheng not to be too anxious and to do his best. The sound of a car beeping echoed from outside, and turning around, they saw their father, radiating excitement from his car, waving energetically at Lu Sheng. Today, with Lu Sheng taking his unified exam, it seemed the whole family was involved in the momentous occasion. Once the siblings were in the car, their father cheerfully drove out of the residential complex. Though he knew how to drive, he had always ridden a bicycle to save money. Lu Sheng recently bought him a car, and while Lu Sheng had wanted to buy a more luxurious one, his father had insisted on a more modest choice. It wasn't an expensive car, but to their father, it was a treasure. Inside the car, their father jovially said to Lu Sheng, "Whether their Lu family can produce a top martial scholar depends on Lu Sheng now." Lu Qing immediately piped up, protesting, asking what about her. Their father laughed, replying, "Little girl, your turn is still a ways off." The trio chatted and laughed as they headed towards the exam site, finally stopping at the City Martial Arts Center. The entrance, usually empty, was bustling today, filled with anxious parents and exam-taking students, not to mention numerous cars parked along the roadside. Activating his psychic power, Lu Sheng could hear the voices of concerned parents speaking with their children. "Do you need water? How about the toilet? Good luck with your exams. Don't be nervous. Did you remember to bring your ID?" Lu Sheng looked at this group of young exam takers. It had been a long time since he had lived a life like an ordinary high school student. Now, he was about to experience what every high school student goes through, taking the unified exam. Their dad gazed at the martial arts center, reminiscing. Back in his day, he also took the unified exam here. Unfortunately, his talent wasn't up to par, and the required supplement regimen was too much for him. He ended up just making a simple appearance before getting weeded out. Turning back to face Lu Sheng, his dad's eyes were filled with pride. Telling Lu Sheng that he is 100 times stronger than his old man, he won't say much else. telling Lu Sheng, "Just give it all and don't let any regrets get to him." Lu Sheng replied earnestly, he understood. Lu Qing also encouraged her brother, "Oni-chan, do your best. Dad and I will wait for you outside." Lu Sheng smiled, then bid farewell to the two of them, and headed alone to the entrance of the martial arts center. He joined the queue to check IDs and was given a number. Once past the yellow line, tens of thousands of students surged towards the entrance. Behind him, countless eyes filled with anticipation watched. The annual Grand Martial Arts Unified Examination was finally underway. Lu Sheng could tell that the examinees around him were all quite nervous. The White Lake City Martial Arts Center, capable of accommodating over 100,000 people, was now partitioned into numerous individual small rooms. Inside each of these rooms stood a device to measure one's blood energy level, as well as another device to gauge one's combat strength. Long queues had already formed as students began to line up. Each testing room had 3 supervisors. One was responsible for measuring the blood energy levels, another gauged the combat strength, and a third stood at the door, ensuring order and managing the entrance of the examinees. Each student had a designated number. As a group was being called in by one of the supervisors suddenly walked towards where Lu Sheng stood, frowning, wondering, "What's going on here? Why can't the students line up properly?" He had been observing this area for a while and noticed a peculiar scene. The front and back of the line were densely packed with students, but there was an odd gap right in the middle. The supervisor motioned for Lu Sheng to move forward, and Lu Sheng complied. He then gestured for a chubby boy behind Lu Sheng to advance as well. The chubby boy, beads of sweat forming on his forehead, said it's not that he doesn't want to move forward, but whenever he gets close to this guy. He then pointed to Lu Sheng, saying he inexplicably felt so nervous that his legs start trembling. He was fine when he first entered, but now, the closer he gets to Lu Sheng, the more anxious he becomes. The supervisor's brows furrowed. Turning to observe the students lined up in front of Lu Sheng, he noticed they were now desperately pushing forward, as if they were being pricked from behind. Only then did the supervisor focus on Lu Sheng. A cursory glance wouldn't reveal anything amiss, but a closer look made the supervisor's heart skip a beat. It was no wonder that the students both in front of and behind Lu Sheng were reluctant to come close to him. Lu Sheng exuded an imposing aura, like an intangible force field surrounding him. It was so overpowering that people nearby instinctively wanted to distance themselves from him. At this moment, even the supervisor standing next to Lu Sheng felt an eerie tingling on his scalp, and the hair on his arms stood on end. The supervisor was well aware that such a presence is the result of a martial artist's blood energy level concentration reaching a such high level that it radiates outwards. While the supervisor had encountered such situations before, witnessing this from an 18-year-old high school student was a rare sight. The supervisor decided to have Lu Sheng enter the testing room first, instructing the others to line up behind. Grateful for the chance to be away from Lu Sheng, the other students quickly scattered, eager to distance themselves from this monster. Lu Sheng resignedly and made his way to the testing room. As soon as he entered, he overheard a young man protesting loudly that he hadn't taken any prohibited substances and that he'd only consumed chicken soup brewed by his uncle, which his uncle claimed was beneficial for the exam. But the supervisor wasn't convinced and took him away. Another supervisor coldly swept his gaze over every student present, warning that he had said this once and wouldn't repeat this again. If anyone has consumed anything they shouldn't have in the past few days, they may leave now. The supervisor will consider it as an absence, and it won't affect their chance to take the unified exam next year. The young boy being pulled out of the exam site still protesting, that young man would undoubtedly resent his uncle for a long time. The supervisor continued, shaking his head. These cheaters will likely never make it into a martial arts university. No institution will admit a student with a record of dishonesty. When it was finally Lu Sheng's turn, an intense and palpable aura emanated from him, immediately making the atmosphere in the room heavy. The two supervisors' faces went pale, and the one closest to Lu Sheng involuntarily took several steps back, feeling overwhelmed by the intensity. It was shocking to see two fifth-level martial arts supervisors react this way. their bodies trembling and instinctively retreating from Lu Sheng. The supervisor responsible for testing blood energy levels doing his best to suppress his unease from the powerful aura Lu Sheng emitted, approached with a needle to extract a blood sample. As the supervisor was about to open the packet, Lu Sheng voiced out, "That needle won't pierce his skin." The supervisor halted his action, eyes widening in disbelief. Looking intently at Lu Sheng, the supervisor nodded and fetched a higher-grade needle from his drawer. Lu Sheng didn't think these would be any use either. He grabbed a handful and fiercely jabbed them into his hand. To everyone's astonishment, the needles bent without piercing his skin. With no other immediate solution, the supervisors decided to proceed with testing Lu Sheng's combat strength first. Meanwhile, they'd search for an even more advanced needle for the blood test. A blonde-haired girl was undergoing her test. Walking up to the combat strength testing dummy, she gave it her all with a punch. With joy, she saw her combat strength surpass the 100 mark, giving her hope to attend Dongning Martial University. Then, it was Lu Sheng's turn. The staff member, surprised to see a supervisor personally escorting a student, reminded the supervisor that Lu Sheng's blood energy value hadn't been recorded yet. The supervisor whispered something into the staff member's ear, leaving the staff member in disbelief. The supervisor glanced at the nearby testing dummy, questioning if they needed to upgrade to a more advanced one. The staff, although shocked, informed the supervisor that the current machine was the most advanced one available for the unified exam, with a maximum combat strength limit of 990,000. Thus, even facing a level 6 martial artist would have no issue. The staff member chuckled, saying this boy can't be a grand master, right? The supervisor regained his composure. He thought he probably had been overthinking. He then called out Lu Sheng's name. As Lu Sheng moved closer, an overwhelming and scorching aura radiated from him. The supervisor and the staff member felt a momentary lapse in their confidence, as if they had misjudged something. But then, watching Lu Sheng introduce himself and politely